Happy New Year! Happy New Year, Ropod Gang. I know we are at the end of February. In fact, we are almost finishing the month and we are about to start March. But you know what? I have come to realize, number one, life has no formula, so you might as well just do what you please. Number two, hata nikiamua kwanza New Year yangu June, guess what? I will start my new year in June. So, Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful holiday. I hope you enjoyed your Christmas. I hope you enjoyed your New Year. I hope January was kind to you, even though it was a really long January. This was the longest January I think I've ever had. This is the January where I felt the 5 weeks. But yeah, I hope January was good to you. If it wasn't, I really hope you survived and I hope that the days are better. And of course, how can we forget? I hope February was also kind to you. I hope Valentine's was kind to you. If Cupid visited your door, if Cupid, looked your way, kama ulipokea mshale wa mapenzi, congratulations and good for you. Now, for the rest of us who were getting our grind on, we were hustling, we were, making many moves, hapa na pale. Well, silly life, and life goes on, I guess. Yeah. Did we die? We did not. Cha muhimu ni we lived to tell the story and we are still here. So it's still the month of love, even though we just have a few days left. And what better way to finish off this month by taking you back down memory lane to 2002 to a movie known as Dangerous Affair. Now, I know someone might be wondering, Dangerous Affair, which movie is that? What the hell is that? Never heard of it. No worries. After this review, you will go, look for it, sit down and watch. I promise you. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a 2002 movie by Judy Kibinge. Judy Kibinge is a Kenyan filmmaker and she is behind so much of what we know as Kenyan filmmaking. I would love to actually refer to her as the mother of Kenyan filmmaking, contemporary Kenyan filmmaking that is, because she's really responsible for Kenyan filmmaking as we know it today, the modern way. She kickstarted that wave. And she kickstarted that wave through this movie known as Dangerous Affair, which I am going to be reviewing today. So, but before we go into the movie, who is Judy Kibinge? So, like I said before, she is a Kenyan filmmaker and she started out her career as a copywriter. So, if you don't know what a copywriter is basically people who come up with the concepts and these catchy slogans or catchy words that you see on ads in a nutshell. That's what a copywriter does. So she started out her career as a copywriter. Then she became the creative director for McCann Erickson. Now, if you don't know what that is, McCann Erickson was one of the leading advertising agencies in East Africa back in the day, back in the 90s. So she was a creative director at that company. And while she was there, she wrote some of East Africa's well-known adverts before she transitioned into filmmaking. So Dangerous Affair was her first feature film. And she's done so many other things since then. She's done a film known as Killer Necklace. She's done another known as Something Necessary. She's been involved in so many things. If I were to state everything that she's done, I wouldn't finish tutaishi hapa. But all in all, she is a pioneer in contemporary Kenyan filmmaking. So, let's get into our movie for today. Dangerous Affair is a 2002 rom-com / drama that was written and directed by Judy Kibinge. Shida matamshi kidogo inipiga chenga hapo. Yeah, the film was written and directed by Judy Kibinge and produced by the late Jerry Karago, who you might be interested to know is the aunt to Tosh Gitonga. Now, Tosh Gitonga is a very well-known director, and he is best known for writing and directing the film, one of Kenya's biggest films actually, Nairobi Half-Life. I know, small world, yes. Once again, I will always remind you that hakuna mtu hutoka from nowhere. People don't just pop out of nowhere. Most likely, they are there because somebody, a connection somewhere, paved the way. So, the late Jerry Karago, who produced this movie, is or was the aunt to Tosh Gitonga. It's interesting how this world works. So, the movie stars the one and only Renee Were, who plays the character of Koi, a banker. It also stars Leonard Ogembo, who plays the character of Muraguri, or Murags as he is known throughout the film by his friends. It also casts Sarah Mwihaki, who plays the character of Rose. It casts Ian Kaburu, who plays the character of Jimmy, who is Rose's husband. And Jimmy is actually played, you might also know him by his most famous character, Mr. Ngatia from Tahidi High. Kama who watched Tahidi High back in the day, I don't know what to tell you. That was an era that you just had to witness. Na kama ilikupita hivyo, pole sana. You can always search for it on YouTube. But anyway, if you know, you know, Mr. Ngatia. The late Lona Irungu, who plays the character of Brenda, Wangeshi Murage, who plays Sophie, and Tony Njuguna, who plays OT, Sophie's boyfriend. And then we have George Kiromboro, who plays the character of Francis, who is later Brenda's boyfriend. And Joseph Omari, who plays Murag's dad. Now, Joseph Omari, you might think, who is Joseph Omari? Joseph Omari is actually Mr. Tembo again. If you didn't watch Tahidi High, you might miss this. For those who watched Tahidi High, you remember the character called Mr. Tembo, who was the principal of Tahidi High? Yes, he plays Murag's dad in this movie. So there goes our cast. Now, before I get into what this film is about, allow me to just state why it's important. This movie was the turning point for Kenyan contemporary filmmaking, because before this, most films in this country were done in the documentary style. We didn't really have many storytelling and or narrative films before. But when this movie burst into the scene, everything changed. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't any. Of course there was, and one day I'll tell you about it. I don't want to give you everything. I don't want to give you spoilers. One day I will tell you about one of, I think, the first feature films in this country. We'll talk about it. But yeah, most Kenyan films were documentaries before this movie. So when this movie came, it literally changed everything. Watu wakaamka and they're like, yeah, there's actually a market, there's possibility for us to make films that tell stories of the everyday Kenyan person. One other thing about this movie that really stuck out to me was that it had a purely Kenyan soundtrack. Probably the first of its kind, if I'm being honest. The Kenyan soundtrack, I found that to be very, very impressive. That was very impressive for that time. They were really following the Hollywood blueprint, and they really tried. So this movie had a purely Kenyan soundtrack, and the music in this movie was produced by none other than the legendary music producer Ted Josiah. And it featured artists like Waire, Nyotandogo, Dij, for those who remember Dij, Sheila Mwanyiga, who by the time went by her stage name known as Nikki, Red Sun, Nameless, and Amani. So it was a totally Kenyan soundtrack. All the songs in that film, I kid you not, are Kenyan. You might recognize some of the songs, you might not recognize others because they are probably not released to the public, or they were just made for the purposes of being featured in the movie. And Ted Josiah, if you are listening to this, if this catches your ears, please, 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 please release the Dangerous Affair soundtrack on Spotify. I discovered such hidden gems in that movie, and we've always had good music. This movie was a reminder that we've always had good music, and we will always have good music, unless, I don't know, aliens visit us, I don't know. But one thing's for sure, two things for certain: Kenya has good music, it's always had good music, and it will always have good quality music. I'm telling you that for free 99, because there's such good songs in this movie. I would rewind scenes just to listen to some of the songs because they were that good. I really, really enjoyed them. And you know the thing that I didn't like? I didn't like that I couldn't find them anywhere online. I couldn't find some of the songs online. So Ted Josiah, if you're listening to this, please, I beg you, I'm on my knees. Please release this soundtrack on Spotify or YouTube, just somewhere. Can it just be available online for the newer generations to access it and be introduced to this music? Some of the music in this movie was so good. I got upset when I couldn't find it, honestly. And something interesting as well when it comes to the soundtrack is that some of the artists even made appearances in the film. One of them was Were. He appeared in the wedding scene as an instrumentalist during the wedding as the bride was walking down the aisle. And Dij also made an appearance in the movie in a club scene. And I found that to be really cool because where else does that happen in Kenyan film? When I say that this film was a game changer, I really mean it because you can tell they really studied Hollywood. They really did their homework, and I liked it. I liked that. The fact that they had a Kenyan soundtrack and some of the musicians involved in the soundtrack were making appearances in the film. Other musicians who made an appearance in the film were Circuit and Joel. For some of you, this name or this duo sounds familiar. Now, if you are not familiar with who Circuit and Joel are, they are the ones behind a very controversial song known as Manyake. So back in the day, this song was so controversial. It broke the news. It was a big deal because of the subject matter. So they also made an appearance in the film. So the movie went on to win an award at the Zanzibar Film Festival, and it kickstarted the career of some of today's famous actors and actresses. And if you think I'm lying, again, go watch this movie. You will see that, or you'll notice that most of the people there, you saw them in other productions, especially Makutano Junction. It's like everyone who was involved in Makutano Junction was in that movie. I kid you not. It's like the entire cast of Makutano Junction started out in that movie. I'm not even joking. This movie had a really great impact on the Kenyan film landscape at the time. So, let's get into Dangerous Affair. Like I said before, it's a rom-com / drama. And where can you find it? This is also another thing. First of all, allow me to share a little story about how I even knew of this movie and its existence. So, back when I was undertaking my journalism degree, we had this course by the name of media literacy. Is it media literacy? Yes. The course was called media literacy. And basically, what this course is about is that it teaches you how to analyze not only the news, but movies, music, books, shows, everything that encompasses media. When I say media, I don't mean news. I mean movies, I mean music, I mean books, I mean television shows. Yeah. So that course basically taught you how to analyze and identify themes, and subject matter within media. We were given topics to present on, and the topic that I was given was called media and sexuality. So I was supposed to present how sexuality is portrayed in media, and I was supposed to do it on the global scale and on the local scale, which is Kenya. So as I was doing my research for the Kenyan bit, you have to go through so many articles, so many journals, so many academic papers online. If you know, you have to do your research properly to make sure that the information you're presenting is accurate. So as I was doing my research, I came across this academic paper that was talking about sexuality in Kenyan media, and it had this movie listed as one of the films that portray or talk about Kenyan sexuality. So I was so interested because I was like, Dangerous Affair. I've never heard of this movie, yet it's a Kenyan movie. Why? Why is that the case? So I went on a quest to search for this movie and watch it. This was in 2021. So I just searched, and I remember being so frustrated because I couldn't find this movie anywhere. So I was asking myself, if I can't find this movie, yet I'm seeing papers have been written on it. Kwani, how professors walitoa wapi movie? Where did they get it? How did they access this piece of media? Na mbona mimi sipati? Where can I get it? I was so relentless. I was so determined to get this movie and to watch it. Because you mean there are other movies apart from Nairobi Half-Life that existed and were produced? Na hatujaziona. Why is that the case? So this became a thought that was just eating at my brain and eating at it and eating at it. I was like, I need to find it. So come 2024, I looked for this movie for 3 years, 3 tireless years, online, just searching. Nikikumbuka, by the way, sikuwatchi movie. Ebu niitafute. I search, dead end. Search, dead end. I search, dead end. Until one day, in 2024, beginning of 2024 actually, I remember, by the way, this movie, I've been wanting to watch it, yet I've never found it. I've never been able to find it. So I search, I do my search. And to my pleasant surprise, I find a link. So I click on it, and there it is. I was so excited. I was so happy. I was like, finally, I have been looking for this movie for 3 years. 3 whole years. 3. And I finally found it. Finally. Yani, it was like such sweet victory to finally access that movie, which is something that I'm going to talk about later on. But anyway, I know at this point you're itching to know. So, where did I find this movie? You can get this movie on Vimeo. All you have to do is go to Vimeo and search Dangerous Affair by Judy Kibinge, because the good thing with Vimeo is that it will give you the title and then below it the person who uploaded the video or the owner of the video. So just go on Vimeo, on the search bar type Dangerous Affair and then click search. And when you see by Judy Kibinge, and in fact to help even further, the thumbnail is the leading lady and the leading man on their wedding day. Once you see that, that is the movie. And hopefully you will be excited as I was that day when I finally got my hands on that movie, and you'll watch it and you will let me know your thoughts about it. So yeah, that is my story with how I got access to this movie. So, what is Dangerous Affair about? It's basically about this dude called Murags or Muraguri, but wanamwita Murags for the better part of the movie. So Murags is, a player, and all that changes when he meets Koi, Nini Washera's character, who is a banker who's just come back from abroad. And they start up a romance, but in the middle of it all, there's an obstacle of infidelity. And the entire movie is basically just Murags trying to stay committed to Koi, but he keeps on going back to familiar waters through infidelity. That's basically the entire plot. So the movie opens with a shot of clothes all over the floor, and then we see empty bottles of alcohol. At some point, we even see a pack of trust condoms. We see cigarettes that have just been used. So we see a very, very messy room. And then finally, we see Murags and a woman laying in bed together. So it's evident that they've just, had sex. And from this, we are able to establish the kind of man that Murags is. He's a messy person, not just on the outside, but also his dating life is messy. And they wake up and Murags calls this lady by the wrong name. So, of course, the lady is offended. She's like, who the hell is Susan? How dare you? You mean you can't even remember my name after what we just did? You just exchanged fluids and you can't even, at the very least, remember what my name is. So she's upset and she leaves. And Murags, he loves the drama. And he loves when women are getting worked up over him. So, of course, he's there. He's laughing at this chick's frustration and she leaves. So as she leaves, messages start pouring in from Murag's answering machine. Now, this is how you know that this movie is such a time capsule. The things that you see in this movie, from the technology to brands that no longer exist or brands that changed their whole logo and packaging and stuff. This movie is such a time capsule, and that's what I love. One of the things that I loved most about it while watching it. Yani, you get to see how life was back then in Nairobi for the average Nairobi youth. That's what I really, really loved about this movie. It's such a time capsule. And if you were young during that time, I'm speaking to the older millennials especially, if you were an adult in the early 2000s, you will definitely take a nostalgic trip when you watch this movie, because it really does so well to show how life was back then. It captures the essence of being a Nairobian back then, with the technology, with the things that you see that are no longer there. That's what I really loved. So in this scene, he's getting messages from different women that he's slept with or dated from his answering machine. And of course he enjoys it. He's the typical player. So he's enjoying getting these messages of girls who are worked up, and they're mostly worked up because he never really follows up after they see each other. So the ladies are like, why didn't you call? I've been waiting for you. Call me, please. And all that, those shenanigans, are dating in Nairobi. And of course, he's there and he's enjoying it. Yeah, he's the man, anajisikia sana. Huyo ndio ule msee. So as he's getting ready for work and listening to these messages, he's having the time of his life. But there's one particular message from one lady that makes him come to a standstill. And this message is from a lady by the name of Rose. So she's like, hey Murags, it's Rose. Jimmy and I just came back from Mombasa with the kids. I really missed you. Can't wait to see you soon and all that. So it's very evident from this message. This is a very important lady in Murag's life. She's not like the rest, because with the rest of the women, he was just brushing off those messages. I'm sure he wasn't even listening to most of them because they're the same. But for this particular lady by the name of Rose, this message clearly has an effect on him, because he literally stops whatever he was doing and he stands still. It's almost as though he has not heard from this lady for such a long time, and he's surprised to hear her voice, and he's surprised that she's contacting him. So, the message clearly shocks him. He didn't expect it, but he leaves for work anyway. So, as he's leaving for work, we see him get into his car, get out of his home, and he stops with his employees. I guess he's a mechanic, because he's driving this. He goes from driving his normal car to driving these cars that they look like tow trucks. Hizi zenye kanjo wanakuanga nazo sana sana. They look like tow trucks. And behind them, so they're usually pickups. So behind that car is a bunch of other men who I guess are his employees. So they're all seated at the back. I don't know where he's taking them, but they stop. So he stops, and because he notices this lady who is changing her car tire. And she's no ordinary lady, because of course he stopped. And at this point we've established that Murags is a dog who likes women, and not just any kind of woman, but beautiful women. So of course when he sees a beautiful woman, he's going to stop. So he stops and checks her out. Anamwangalia, yeah. Oh, it's a lady, and she's smartly dressed in a red dress and 2 heels, and she's fixing her tire by herself. So of course he's intrigued and impressed, and the lady notices him checking her out, and she's like, what are you staring at? If you're going to stand there, not help, then don't look at me. And she's very valid for that, because why? Why are you staring? But yeah, so Rags is like, what's a beautiful woman like you doing, changing your tire and all that? He starts smooth talking her, but she's not for it. She's just like, hey, back away, you creep. Hey, please. Murags is like, at least allow me to buy you a drink. So this lady, she's like, I would not allow you to buy me a drink even if you're the last man in Africa. And she's upset. She finishes fixing her tire and she drives off. So in the process of her driving off, she splashes muddy water on Murag's shoes and trousers. So the employees, at this point, they are watching that entire interaction and they laugh when that happens. So Murag is embarrassed and he's like, mnacheka nini, eh? What are you laughing at? So it's very clear that he's embarrassed about what has happened. Not only has he been carved by a beautiful lady who is changing and fixing her own tire, but she wants nothing to do with him, and she drove off and dirtied his pants, and now he looks stupid. So of course he doesn't like that, and he does not take that very well. Anyway, we cut to now Murags and his friend group having some after work drinks in this joint, one of their 2 favorite joints to go to. So at this point, this is where now it's established. The friend group is established, and we see the friend dynamics and how they hang out and who's who in the friend group. So Murags is there with his new pretty young thing, hot catch, and he's there with his friend OT. This is where we get introduced to his other friends. So we're introduced to OT and his other friend known as Francis, and we're introduced to his other friend known as Brenda, played by the late Lona Irungu, and also introduced to Sophie, who is OT's girlfriend, played by Wangeshi Murage. So, they're having a discussion about, of course, relationships and all. And yeah, Murag's PYT talks, and, it's obvious that they're trying to portray her as this dumb blonde. And everyone is just like, what is this chick saying? Why is she even opening her mouth? Why is she talking? So they ignore her most of the time. And Murags now switches the conversation to OT and Sophie's relationship. So he's asking them, and you guys, you've been dating for 5 years. How comes you're not married yet? So, of course, Sophie is bothered by this fact that they're not married. But OT defends it by saying, we enjoy dating. At least we are committed. They bring up all manner of excuses as to why they're not married despite dating after 5 good years. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's you getting into uni and finishing your degree and then, I don't know, working for a year. So you can imagine they've been dating for 5 years and there's no signs of marriage. So OT is like, let me first get a good job. I'm waiting to get a good job first before, I can commit. Then Sophie's like, first it was, let me finish my degree. And then it was, let me finish my master's. And now you're saying that I should let you finish your job first before we get married. So it's very clear that their relationship is on the rocks because they're not in a marriage. Yet they are cohabiting. So this was the early 2000s. And back then, cohabiting was frowned upon. It was not as accepted as it is now. Now we have this entire baby mama, baby daddy culture and the come we stay kind of lifestyle. It's more acceptable right now. But back then, this was in 2002, by the way. Cohabiting was not the norm. So, of course, their relationship status is controversial and it's established in this scene that it's controversial and the friends do not really approve of what they have going on. So anyway, Brenda leaves the group and she sees this guy that she likes and she approaches him. And it's also established at this point that, she's the go-getter, she's the outspoken friend, not afraid to speak her mind, she's assertive, she's a go-getter. So, of course, she goes and starts hitting on this guy that she likes. So, while she's doing that, Koi, played by Nini Washera, walks in. And actually, let's take it back a bit. So while they're still talking amongst themselves in the group, Brenda tells Sophie that, by the way, I'm so excited because my friend Koi, she should be back from the United States any minute. I can't wait to meet her. I've missed her. So we already get a picture that there's another character who's about to be introduced. And then so she leaves. That's when now, after this is when now she leaves and goes to start cattiering that guy that she fancies at the other side of the bar. So as she's doing this, Koi walks in to the joint and she spots Brenda from afar and she approaches her. So she approaches her and surprises her. It's clear that Brenda was not expecting Koi to be back so soon, but she's so happy to see her. And, they hug. They're like, yeah, nice to see you. You look so good. She even forgets that she was busy talking to this other guy to the point where she forgets her name. She forgets the guy's name. So the guy is offended and she's like, ataki stories how you dame, like, how do you forget my name? We were just talking a few seconds ago. But anyway, Brenda pays him no mind and she's too excited to see her friend who she's not seen for years. She leads Koi to the bar. She's like, let's get a celebratory drink now that you're back. So Koi orders for some wine. She's like, can I have some Merlot? So Merlot is a type of wine, for those who don't know. And I think it was used to show us that she's this, classy lady from New York. And she only takes wines and all that classy stuff. But Brenda is like, no, that's boring. That's a boring drink. Have something like rum or whiskey, not wine. So she puts the bottle of Merlot aside and she's like, no, I don't want that. I'll just have the house red wine. So as they're doing this, Murags now tells his friend group, hey, by the way, I met this girl. This girl. Oh, before that, actually, Murags sends away the chick that he was originally with. So he pretends at A that there's an emergency that came up, so he has to go, and he goes with the chick. And that whole interaction really just puts into perspective how much of an asshole Murags is. The way he talked to that chick, I kid you not. For me, those would have been grounds. But anyway, she's supposed to play this pretty young thing who's just so happy to be in the company of a guy like Murags. But for me, I'm telling you, those are grounds. You can't talk to me like that. But anyways, yeah. So she sends away that chick after falsely promising her that they'll go somewhere else after where they were. He starts telling his friends that, yeah, I met this really nasty lady today. No, she was bad and she was all that and she was rude to me and blah, 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 and blah, blah. So after that, Sasa, see, he goes by the bar and he asks for a drink. So it's coincidental that he's standing next to Koi and Brenda, but they can't see each other because they're separated by this huge ass plant. So he happens to overhear Koi and Brenda's conversation. So Brenda is asking Koi, please tell me you're still not a virgin. You there, eh? Please tell me don't tell me you're still a virgin, like you'd be the oldest virgin I know. So Koi doesn't respond. So Brenda takes that as a yes, that Koi is still a virgin. So remember, Murags is overhearing this conversation, and the moment he hears the words virgin, his ears just shoot up, like the dog that he is. His ears are very alert. Zinataka kusikia ni virgin gani wa 27 in the year of our Lord 2002. Virgin. So he takes a keen interest, and he's clearly impressed by this fact that there's a 27-year-old virgin in the building. So Koi is like, I'm waiting for the right guy, you know? Yeah, I'm just waiting for the right guy. I don't want to rush into things. Hey, and these are Feces' favorite words to hear. I'm waiting for the right guy and I don't want to rush into things. So of course Murags is very excited and he sees the bottle of wine that Koi had initially ordered and he's like, acha nitatumia hii kumteka. I'll use this to get her sasa. So he takes the bottle and then he goes to Koi. He goes behind Koi and starts telling her, would you be interested in, a glass of this wine? So Koi sees the wine first and she's like, oh, you have taste. Nice. So she turns around and sees the man that she had met earlier in the day. And Murags also sees that, hey, this is that nasty chick I met earlier today. So, of course, they're not happy to see one another. And they're like, you. And then they go on a whole tirade that, hey, Renee, you're the most arrogant. So they're all speaking at the same time and they're insulting each other. The most arrogant, annoying person I've met in my life, blah, 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 blah. And then Murags is like, if I'd known it was you, I wouldn't even have bought you this bottle. I'd have hit you with it. And so Koi laughs sarcastically. And Murags is like, oh, so she has a sense of humor. And yeah. So Koi decides, you know what? Let me give this douchebag a chance. And they end up talking the entire time that their friends are there. And they hit it off quite well. So as they're doing this, their friends are watching and they're like, hey, this is not good news. This is bad news. Those two have no business being together because they know the kind of man that Murags is. So it's evident that they don't approve of those two hitting it off very well. So, after this scene, we cut to now Rose's introductory scene. So we are introduced to Rose. Remember, she's the woman who had left that message earlier telling Murags that she's back in town. So we see her preparing for work and getting her kids ready for school. So she's a mother of 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and they're getting off to go to school. So she notices that her daughter isn't feeling well, and she's like, you might have to skip school today. So the daughter asks, but who'll take care of me? And then the son is like, Dad will. So of course, but Dad will, but he's always sleeping. So from that, we get the idea that their father is not the most useful man on earth. And because he's sleeping while their wife is preparing to go to work and take the kids to school, he's asleep. So Rose goes to wake her husband, Jimmy, who's played by Mr. Ngatia from Tahini High. She goes to wake him and he's still sleeping, like deep in sleep.
So she decides, you know what? I can't leave this child here, this sick child with this man. She might die. So she's like, itabidi tu mtu hii ameenda shule, by the way, because if I leave her here with her dad, it will not be very good. She's safer off. She's safer off in school than with her dad. Yeah. So she takes her kids to school, and Jimmy, after some time, wakes up and he, just does the usual useless things that an unemployed man does. He eats what he finds. He puts on music, starts dancing, ako tu, having the time of his life, while his wife is away slaving herself at work and the kids are in school. So from this scene, we get the picture that Rose is a struggling, working wife and mother. And she's married to a man who is jobless and is not a very involved parent. And then we go to Murags and OT at their after-works drinks session. And these people, I notice, they really drink a lot. I don't know if they had so much disposable income, This was 2002, so the dollar was low. The dollar was low, things were cheap. I think they had a lot of disposable income. We didn't have the housing levy, we didn't have Shah and Chief. So I think they still had more money left, even after taxes. Because the amount of times these people keep drinking, it's a lot. It's a lot. But anyway, in this scene, this is a scene where Murags finally gets Koi's number. Because apparently he'd been trying to get it from Brenda, but Brenda wouldn't give it to him because Brenda doesn't like him. And we see this a couple of times, that Brenda clearly does not rate Murags at all. She does not like that man. If Murags has no haters, then Brenda would be dead. Brenda really, really didn't like Murags. And I get her. That dude is a douche. But yeah. So Brenda wouldn't give Murags Koi's number. So OT manages to get Koi's number through Sophie. So while they're at the bar, they discuss this and OT's like, let me call Sophie, nionekane as anipea. And Sophie gives him Koi's number. So from here now, we get to see Koi and Murag's relationship blossom, because they hang out a lot, they spend a lot of time together, they're going out, they're going on night picnics, they're spending a lot of time together, and their relationship is growing and they're getting to know one another and actually like each other. And of course, Brenda hates that this is happening, and she tries to warn Koi that, hey, this guy is not good for you. And the fact that if he knows that you're a virgin, he will definitely make it his goal to try and get into your pants. But Koi is like, no, me, I just want to have fun. I've been away in New York for a long time, and I just want to come home and have fun. And what if this is fate? What if Murags is the one? What if he's really the guy that I've been waiting for? And, Brenda, of course, she's cynical and she's like, no, I don't think so. But you know what? You do you, bro. You do you. So things seem to be going well for Koi and Murags. The two are in love. Life is great. But then somebody else comes into the picture, and this person is none other than Rose. So how does this happen? At one time, Murags and his friends, his usual circle, are out, and they spot Rose playing pool. And OT na kiherehere yake calls Rose. So he's like, Rose, and she spots them. So Murags walks over to Rose. They've not seen each other in a while. And so you can tell that there's obviously still something there because of the looks that they give each other and even how they talk to one another. It's very awkward. And, it has that lingering feeling. You kind of get that there's some unfinished business between the two because they're blushing in one another's faces. And yeah, so they say, hi, I've not seen you in a while. How are you? Murags asks Rose, how are you? And how's the kids? How's Jimmy? Yeah, she's like, yeah, everyone's fine. And yeah, so they leave it at that. So we now know that Rose and Murags have seen one another after a very long while. And it kind of sparks some feelings in Murags. But he's like, no. I found something good with Koi and I think I need to concentrate on that. Hi. And then we have Murags and Koi, still going and spending time with one another. But then this moment was a very, very, it wasn't the ordinary because Murags finally proposes to Koi and he decides to get serious. So he proposes to Koi over dinner and she says yes. And so now they're engaged. So now from here, this is where now things started going downhill. So the two are engaged, Koi is happy. She's going to shop for wedding dresses with her friends and we see them planning the wedding and all that. But then Murags and Rose continue to see one another at their favorite joints. So they decide to take things a step further away from the alcohol. And one of the nights where they are out in their favorite two joints, they sleep together. So this becomes the first of a string of so many affairs between those two. And yeah, you can imagine you're engaged and your fiancé is busy sleeping with someone else. But anyway, silly life. So then we go to the party that happens actually before that. So we go to the introduction scene. So what I mean by this is a scene where Murags and Koi's families are getting introduced to one another officially. So in this scene, you have we get to learn a lot of things from this scene where they do the introduction. So it starts with Koi's side of the family and Murag's side of the family. They're seated, they want to start the discussions, the dairy discussions and all that. So you have Koi's dad and his brothers and Murag's dad and his brothers. So as they're discussing, as they're about to start the discussions, Koi's dad gets a phone call and he's like, Auntie, yes? Okay, take the BMW. Okay, fine. So, okay. Yeah, that line was so poorly done. It was not well written, but it was meant to show, that the father is rich. He's a wealthy man. Koi is from a wealthy upbringing. And you can clearly just see the faces on Murag's side of the family just become embarrassed because they're like, hey, we are in the presence of wealth. We are in the presence of money. So, they become embarrassed and all that. And of course, he's doing this to show, I'm wealthy and all that. So while they're still discussing, Koi comes in and interrupts. And she's dressed, I really, really love her outfit in this scene. It's so, so cute. She's dressed in this nice sleeveless top, this nice sleeveless crop top, and a matching skirt. And that set is so pretty. But yeah, so she interrupts whatever they're doing and she takes her father's hand and leads her and she's like, come on, I want you to meet Murags. So as she's holding her dad's hand and all, and she's leading him to where Murag's is. So Murag's mother and I guess his aunt spot Koi, and they see what she's doing, and they're not impressed. They start hating. They're like, look at this girl. How is she holding her father's hands like that? No, she's being too touchy-touchy with her dad. So it's clear that Koi and the dad are close because she's hugging him, she's embracing him, in a loving way, the way a child would embrace their parent. So it's very clear, like you see the clear difference between not only class dynamics, but even just how the two of them relate with their parents. It's very different. So while Koi is very, very close to her dad, we don't see that with Murag's. There's some distance, I guess also because Murag's is a guy and yeah. But anyway, we see Koi, she's very close with her dad, she's embracing him, she's hugging him, and those ladies are very upset. Like, look at her. Huh? She's kissing her father. She's hugging her father. And look at how she's dressed. She looks like those street girls. That they're judging and hating. And yeah, they're being the typical African women. The typical African aunties. They're just being that. But anyway, so they're introduced to one another. Murag's is introduced to Koi's father. And Koi's father is like, yeah, oh, so you're Murag's. Okay, nice. You better take care of her. Otherwise, I'll come with a big rungu. He's doing that thing where dads like to threaten the men that their daughters bring home. But he's obviously doing it in a joking way. But the dads like to do that to establish some sort of dominance, which is weird. But that's a topic for another day. Yeah, that's a topic for another day. But anyway, so yeah, they do the introduction. The families get to know each other, and yeah. After that, there's the whole dowry session. They are now officially married, I think, by customary law. So we see the dowry scene is also really nice. I also like her outfit in that scene. I'm telling you, whoever did the wardrobe in this movie, they were in their bag. They did that thing. They did a really good job because the outfits in this movie, they were so good. I loved them. So yeah, after the dowry, they have the farewell parties and something like that. So during this party, we have Rose and Jimmy who are invited. Of course, he's invited. Of course, they're invited because Murag's and Rose know each other. So they're invited to the party, and Jimmy is just so excited to eat the food. I don't know, ni kama hakuna food home. I didn't get it, but he was so excited to see the food at that party. And then it's at this party where Koi learns about Rose's existence. Because remember, up to this point, Koi didn't know who Rose is. But this is where she gets to know her. So how does this happen? So Murag spots Rose during the party, and he walks over to her, and these two, they were so frustrating because they could not hide the fact that there was something going on between them. It was so evident every time they saw one another that there was something. Even Stevie Wonder could see that there was something between these two. They really were so poor at hiding the fact that they had chemistry. So yeah. And he walks over to her in front of the husband. That's how you know these two are really shameless, by the way. Murags walks over to Rose in front of the husband and starts having a conversation with her. So, of course, Jimmy, to assert ownership, goes over to Rose and puts his arm around her, to show that, hey, yeah, she's with me. She might like you, but ultimately, she's with me, her husband. And yeah, Koi's friends, they're like, they spot whatever is going on and they tell her, hey, there is Murags. You might want to go over there and stop whatever is going on because of that chick. So Koi is like, hey, who's that chick? And Brenda informs her, oh yeah, that chick is Rose. And Murags has been having a thing for her for the longest, since high school. So that's where we know now that, Rose is just not any other random lady. She is Murag's high school sweetheart. So you know that they go way back. And you know that this one is deep. People who've known each other when they were kids, hey, this one goes deep. This one goes way back. So they're like, hey, Ebu, you better go there and put a stop to whatever that is that's happening. So Sikoi goes. And she's like, oh, she also, asserts her dominance by kissing Rags on the cheek. And the friends are so happy. They're like, hey, drama, Ebu, we see this, we, Ebu tuone nini inaenda kutendeka hapa. So they're like, yeah, oh, so introduce me to this lady. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's obviously some tension between the four of them. Yeah, because two of them are clearly having relations and the others clearly don't know or are not very, very aware. But yeah, there's clearly some tension in that scene. So after here, we go to the bachelorette, I think, party for Koi. And this scene was, I don't know, it felt kind of out of place to some extent because of what happens. I don't know what the purpose was of this scene to the overall plot. Because, yeah, it didn't reveal anything new like that. I don't know. But anyway, so this scene is where they're throwing a send-off party for Koi. And so they give her gifts and all of that. Sophie gives her a rolling pin so that she can cook chapatis for her husband. I hate such gifts because why? Give me something useful. I don't know, a rolling pin. But anyway, Brenda gives her a book to help her revamp her sex life and a nighttime set to get things steamy in the bedroom. And then we have the other ladies who, I don't know if they are Koi's friends. That's why I'm saying this scene was kind of confusing for me because who the hell were these women? Were they Koi's friends? Were they associates? They just felt out of place. Were they just invited to film the scene? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, one of the ladies gifts Koi sunglasses. At here, I'm gifting you sunglasses because mine beats me every time. That was so dark. Oh my God. Why? But anyway, yeah. And then one of the ladies just suddenly starts to confess how she steals people's husbands, and the women are angry because how dare you steal her husbands, to the extent where they cut her hair and they fight her. A fight ensues because apparently the lady is sleeping with the husbands of one of the women who was attending the party. And this scene was just chaotic. It was a very chaotic scene. And I don't know, I'm yet to understand its purpose in the overall movie. But this scene also, you see a lot of familiar faces. Again, everyone who is everyone, I think, got their start from this movie. There are so many familiar faces in that scene, especially those people who acted in Makutano Junction. Yeah, you see a lot of them in this scene. But yeah, this scene was overall very confusing and very chaotic. It was a very chaotic scene. So we go to Nani, Murags. Murags, on the other hand, he's also having his own send-off party with his friends. And he leaves the party to be with, you guessed it, Rose. So they go to this bar, and after that, as usual, they have an affair. And do you know what makes this so egregious? Is that they did this a day on the night of the wedding eve. A night before the wedding. They had an affair. A night before Murag's and Koi's wedding. Just imagine that. Like, I want that to sink in for a bit. Hey. So, it's the day of the wedding. And would you believe it? These two infidels have woken up in each other's arms on the day that one of them is supposed to be getting married to someone else. So, we see them waking up in Murag's room after Murag's father wakes. Actually, no. The scene that I'm describing is the one that happens before the dowry. So before the dowry day, Murags and Rose, again, they slept together. And they were woken up by Murag's dad. So, because he was late for the dowry day. Then, they did the same thing before the wedding. The night before the wedding. So this is what happened. Now that I have remembered what happened, Sasa Vizuri. This is what happened. The night before the wedding, those two went out. Then, the usual, they got drunk and they had sex. Vile tu wamezoea, the usual. They see each other, they go grab a few drinks, it ends in whatever it ends in. But then, this was no ordinary session. This was no ordinary night. Because of two things. One, it was the night before Koi and Murag's wedding. And two, Murag's got some very, very crucial information. So, after the session, Murags asks Rose, by the way, why did you leave so suddenly? We spent the night together, and then before I know it, you left for Mombasa. Because remember in the beginning, she had left a message saying that she's come back from Mombasa with Jimmy and the kids back to Nairobi. So, Murags asks, that day you just left, and the next thing I know, you are in Mombasa and you're married to Jimmy. Why did you do that? Why did you just leave so suddenly without saying anything? So Rose is like, she's suddenly angry, and she's like, you really want to know why I left, eh? I left because I found out that I was pregnant with your kid, and I knew that if I stayed, you would talk me out of having it. So I decided to flee to Mombasa. But now, while she was in Mombasa, Rose unfortunately lost the baby. So this information changed Murags' worldview, and he just changed everything. And he was like, wow, this woman almost had my baby. but she lost it. And it opened up a whole can of worms and feelings and all that. So it got Murag's thinking so hard. Remember, someone has dropped this bombshell of information to you the night before your wedding. This is your childhood crush, your childhood sweetheart. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And this information has Murag's thinking that, oh my God, what if Rose was actually the one and not Koi, who I'm about to marry in less than 24 hours. So yeah, the next day, the day of the wedding, Oti comes to get Murags and finds him not ready. So I was like, hey, Mse, you're not ready, and yet the bride they're waiting for you. So Murags is like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go through the wedding. Rose is the one I want to be with. Hey. Wow. So of course Oti is like, no, you can't. You've come too far. Rose is the person you have sex with, but Koi is the one you love. Those are two different things. So please, amka vanguo. Today's the wedding, bro. But Murags is very, very adamant, and he's like, no, he's not moving from the bed. Ako hapo, he's like, no, I want Rose. Rose is the one I want to be with. So now, we have Koi on the other hand. She's already starting, her female intuition is kicking in, and it's telling her that Murags does not want to marry her. And she was right. She was so right. I wish she knew how right she was actually in that moment, that nigga never wanted anything to do with her. But yeah. So she starts panicking and she's like, what if he doesn't want to marry me? What if he doesn't show up? So Rose is, Koi she's panicking. She's upset. She's scared, that Murags is going to cancel on her. But everyone is doing their best to calm her down. Murag's dad comes and finds her and he's like, Kwani, what's happening? Why is the bride crying? And people are like, it's because Murags is not here yet. So he's upset and he goes to fetch Murags. So Murags bado ako hapo kwa kitanda, hataki kusonga, hajavaa. He's in his boxers. He's still there. He's like, no, me want Rose. It's Rose. So the dad is like, please, nigga, please, snap out of it. We have spent too much money for you to go back on your word. Ebu amka na uvae nguo. So of course, when your dad talks to you in that tone, you had better do what he says or you will end up in the afterlife. And he dresses up and he gets ready and they go to the wedding venue. So on the other side, Rose and her husband Jimmy are also, about to go to the wedding, but Rose is also hesitant because she can't stand to see the love of her life getting married to someone else. But Jimmy is like, I'm not going to waste this good suit. You dress up, and it's better you go to that wedding so that you see for yourself that your little boyfriend is going to be married to someone else that's not you. Jimmy was such an ass, but oh my God, the things that would come out of his mouth. Comedy. So yeah, so see, we cut to now the wedding. Finally, the groom has accepted to get married, and he's there waiting at the altar for his bride. And so, as they are saying their vows, Koi starts breaking down. as they say their vows and stuff. So this scene was so funny. So as Rose is breaking down, because she's seeing the love of her life getting married right in front of her eyes, the woman next to her is like, don't worry, weddings make me cry too. And I'm like, girl, she's not worried about this stupid wedding. She is about to lose her best eater. She's literally losing her best eater to someone else. Now namwambia ati weddings make me cry too. Anyway, so Rose is there, bawling her eyes out. The husband is smiling and he's like, yes, see, they're now married. They're now married. There is nothing that you can do. So yeah, we see the bridal party, having fun on the wedding day and all that. And yeah, everyone is happy. The couple is now married. So now we see married life with Koi and Murags. And for Koi, it's not all sunshine and rainbows as she had hoped. And for Murags, now this is where he gets the wake-up call that, hey, he's now married. And we see this in the scene where he comes back home from work and Koi has redecorated the entire house. His entire house. So he's obviously not very, very happy about it. And I think this is where he starts to resent her. In a way, this is where he started to not like her when she changed everything about his former bachelor pad. That's where I think, the resentment started kidogo. So, he starts treating Koi so trashily. Like, he treats her badly. It's almost, you'd think that she forced him to marry her. So he mistreats her and continues to have a thing with Rose on the side. And it's just so bad. At one point even, he comes home and then he comes home drunk. He keeps on drinking by the way and smoking the entirety of this marriage. He comes home drunk and he finds Koi sleeping on the dining table with food prepared and she's dressed so well. And when she looks up at him, you can tell that she had been crying. And she's like, hi, it's our 1 month anniversary. I was waiting for you to come and, celebrate, because she had cooked this meal for him to celebrate the 1 month anniversary. And Murags is that dude, wah, such an ass. And I can't say this enough times. Yeah. So he's like, oh, you want a celebration? I'll show you something to celebrate. He tells her, so let's go, Basi. We are going to celebrate at one of my favorite restaurants. And he takes her to a nyama choma joint. You know those dingy nyama choma joints? Those kibandaskis where they serve, those two bars, those dingy bars where they serve nyama choma and alcohol. That's where he takes her. Where him and his friends walikuwa wamezoea kuenda. Hapo ndo anampeleka, imagine. Sasa hizo, she's dressed so nicely. She's dinner ready. She's like dinner at Kempinski ready. And he takes her to that place that's so dingy to celebrate their 1 month anniversary with their friends over nyama choma and beer. And then, of course, Koi is shocked because she's not used to that environment, number one. Number two, who does that? Why would you take your wife to such a place? Honestly. A nyama choma joint for your 1 month anniversary. Why are you doing that? Where do they do that? So, they invite her to have some nyama choma, and as she's trying to reach for the food, she accidentally spills a glass of beer on her dress. So she's like, my Christian Dior dress. I spent a fortune on this dress. So Murags makes fun of her. He's like, my beer also cost me a fortune. So he's clearly just annoyed by her presence, clearly. So she's angry and she just runs off to look for the washrooms to wash. But she can't find good washrooms again because that place is Nikibandaski. So, she's upset. And even the friends are like, Murags, you can be such a jerk, And I agree because why? And it's at this point that we see, we are progressively shown how he really doesn't like the fact that she's from a well-off family and that she's refined and exposed and that she has taste. He hates that about her. It was very, very evident as time went on in their marriage that he felt insecure about the fact that she's from wealth and she was exposed to, she was a cultured person, basically. So, yeah, she just continues to mistreat Rose, man, throughout. I mean, Koi. She continues to mistreat Koi throughout this marriage. And then, one morning, Koi just tells him that, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. And he literally wakes up from his sleep when he hears those words. She tells him that she's pregnant and she reminds him, by the way, just know that you asked me for this marriage. It was all you. I never asked to marry you. You asked to marry me. So, from that moment, yeah, he still doesn't change. He still continues to see Rose until one time he's reminded of why he needs to focus on his wife. So how does this happen? He's out with Rose one time, that usual joint of theirs, the Nyamachoma dingy joint. And Nani is, at this point, Koi is heavily pregnant and she's been suspecting that Rose and Murags are seeing each other because she found hotel receipts in his trouser pockets and she also realized that his clothes smell of someone else's perfume. So she tells her friends and she's worried and she's like, it's not how I thought things would be. And they decide to go catch Murags in the act. So they dress up in disguise and they go to that joint of theirs to look for Murags to confirm that he's with Rose. And true to their word, they find him kissing and touching Rose. And she confronts them. She's so upset. She's heavily pregnant. She confronts them. She's like, how dare you? How could you do this to me? Nini, nini. So in the middle of that confrontation, she falls ill. Because, she's pregnant. Ideally, she's not supposed to be under duress, under so much stress and fighting people when pregnant. It's not good for you. So she faints and she's rushed to hospital. So I think she almost lost that kid or something. So while she's at the hospital and she's passed out, Murag starts to feel guilty. She's like, oh baby, what have I done to you? I'm so sorry. From now on, I'll try to be good. Yeah, so she had to almost lose her life for you to realize that maybe you need to be at least half a decent of a human being. But anyway, Koi gives birth to a baby boy. And this is a sort of turning point in their relationship, at least for a while. And Murags decides that he's going to try and be a present and loving father and husband, and that he's going to give them everything, now that there's a baby in the picture. But you know what they say, that old habits die hard. They die very, very hard. They don't die at all, actually, if we're being honest. They rarely die. He goes back to familiar waters by the name of Rose. And also at this point, he's upset that Koi has all the attention on their son. And in my mind, I'm like, of course she does, because number one, you're never there. You're never there. You're never there. You're never there. What do you expect? You're never there. You never bother. So, of course, she has all the attention to their baby. Plus, the baby needs that attention. Like, literally, that's a baby. So he's upset about the fact that Koi seems to have all the attention on the baby. And then at this point, because he's such a sloppy dude, he's having trouble at work. Parker, to the point where he was put on probation at some point. Because, he always has a problem keeping time at work. And he's never on time. He's just he's an all-round sloppy dude. So I think he even lost the job. And then now Koi had to support him because since she was a banker and she came from money, so she was good. And she even supported him. She loaned him money to buy a matatu and start his own matatu operating business. Yeah. So she tries giving him advice and she's like, oh yeah, by the way, I think for your matatu, you can try Riverside because there are no matatus going to that side. And it's like, I don't need your advice. Just because you gave me money doesn't mean that to start my business, doesn't mean that now you run my business, nini. So, it's clear, like, at this point, it's very clear that this man does not like her. This man is her up and hates her because she has the money, she's educated, she comes from money, everything that can make you enviable. She's that. So yeah, there's some tension. There's obviously tension in their relationship. And at this point, Rose, on the other hand, does not want anything to do with Murags, especially after that incident that happened at the club where Koi almost lost the baby. She felt guilty and she decided that she really didn't want anything to do with Murags anymore. But Murags obviously still did. And he was still harassing her, calling her workplace, trying to go see her at work. But at that point, she really didn't want anything to do with him. And Jimmy, on the other hand, at this point, he's lucky enough to get a job as a salesman. So things seemed to be going pretty well for Rose and Jimmy. They were at a good place. They had even rekindled their relationship in a way. And yeah, things are going well on their end. While Murags, on the other hand, is still trying to harass Rose back into their affairs. But then Murags convinces Rose that he's ready and willing to leave Koi for her. And so they start this whole conversation about leaving their partners, that Rose will leave Jimmy, Koi will leave, Murags will leave Koi, and they can be together finally. So at this point, they have reached the point of no return. They are seeing each other like never before. And Koi and Jimmy even team up to go and confront them, but it doesn't really change a thing because those two, hawezi achana. Like I said, these are childhood sweethearts. One of the hardest things to get over is that childhood sweethearts. So of course they were going to eventually go back to one another because it's what they knew. It's what was familiar. So at this point, they don't give a damn. They are seeing each other like never before. Yani, at this point, Murags is so done with the marriage. He's ready to leave. He doesn't care. But Rose, on the other hand, is like, she starts to get worried because she has more to lose. She has more to lose. Not even Jimmy, but the children. The children are still young. They're still going to school. They need her. So she was like, what about my kids? Who am I going to leave my kids with? Then Jimmy's like, Murags is like, we'll get them back. You don't worry. Mind you, huyu mtoto wake ni mdogo. He's a dude, so he can always leave. I mean, how many times does that happen? But he's like, those kids, you can get them back. You don't worry. So Rose is still not convinced. She's like, will we eat, love? Like, how are we going to survive? You don't have a stable job, and me, I'm the only one with a job. Like, how are we going to survive? But Murag is just like, we have each other. We'll work things out. So, at this point, Koi has left the house. They're sort of like separated. Koi's left the house and she's left with all her things. And she's gone back to her parents. Jimmy has also decided, you know what? This ain't it, man. This life is not for me. Let me leave. Let me go back to Mombasa. So, Rose and Murags are now finally together. They can finally be together and do what they want to do. So, we get to the very, very final scene where Koi hands Murags the divorce letter and she starts smoking as Murags is going through it. So Murags is surprised because she's like, I don't remember you smoking. And then Koi is like, yeah, it's a nasty habit I picked up while I was in New York. Then Murags is like, wait, are you even a virgin? Because it seems like I don't even know you. Then Koi just laughs in his face. So from that, you know that she's not and that she was lying. And then she's like, oh, by the way, you're the lousiest lay that I've ever had. Yeah. Oh, by the way, and of course he is Yani haamini. He's like, hey, Yani, I got played. Ni sawa. Yeah, ni sawa. Ni sawa. So after he signs the divorce papers, Koi leaves and Rose comes. And this is where they now start having that conversation of, oh, will we be okay? Rose is, as usual, like, will we be okay? Will we make it? And Murags is like, yeah, we have each other. We'll be fine. And the credits roll. And the movie ends there. With the two infidels finally together. But all in all, I enjoyed the movie. That movie is, it's a time capsule. It's really great. It's such a nostalgic vibe. It's full of nostalgia. I enjoyed it. I loved it. But there are some areas where improvements could have been made. So, I want to start with the writing. The writing was okay. It wasn't the best, but it worked. It worked for that time. I could see what they were trying to achieve, and they tried their best. But I feel like there are some things that could have been revealed better. For example, Koi's pregnancy. I feel like it could have been revealed or shown in a better way instead of her just breaking the news to Murags like, oh yeah, by then I'm pregnant. Because I'm a big believer of show versus tell. I love it when directors show us instead of just telling us via dialogue that, yeah, 1, 2, 3 happened. And I've spoken about this before when I was reviewing the Disconnect 2 some time back. That's episode 5 of the Ropod. Go check it out if you haven't. It's really nice, really worth listening to. So I talked about this in that episode where I said directors should really, really, really avoid telling us that things are happening. Let the audience deduce. I always say people are not dumb. People have brains. Let them put 2 and 2 together for themselves without you explicitly stating 1, 2, 3 happened. I feel like when it comes to that, it would have been done in a better way, a more dramatic way, instead of just her saying, yeah, by the way, yeah, I'm pregnant, yeah, nivo too. When it comes to character development, I would say Koi had great character development. She started out as this naive girl from abroad who's come back looking for love and found love in a hopeless place by the roadside actually, and in the club. Who finds love in the club? Si tulisema hakuna mapenzi kwa bar. How many times? Anyway, so she started out as this naive girl from abroad who's clearly not conversant with the men of Nairobi. Hey. And she found love in the wrong hands. She went through what she went through, but she managed to come out of it because she remembered who the fuck she was. And she was like, yeah, I'm Koi. I'm a banker, for Christ's sake. I'm in finance. I'm a finance girl. I don't need this. I can actually live, and get better for myself. I am an accomplished girl, for Christ's sake. Koi had good character development. As for Murags, like I said, there are usually 3 different kinds of character development. You start out naive and end up wise, like Koi. You start out the opposite way. You start out as a good person and you regress, or you just never change. And I think this was the case for Murags. Murags and Rose. Actually, not Rose, no. This was the case for Murags. Murags just never changed. He never changed. He started out as a dog and ended as a dog. Because who knows? He might dog out Rose at some point. We don't know. I wish there was a part 2. But yeah, he never changed. He was constant till the end. He was a dog till the end. He just settled for what he knew, which was Rose. But who knows? Maybe. Because we can't really say for sure he found commitment in Rose. We don't know that because we don't have a follow-up. We don't know how he treated Rose when they finally got together. So for him, he never changed for me. He just remained the same. For Rose, I think Rose regressed. Rose, her character development was backwards. She started out good, She managed to move on from her high school crush, built a life for herself somewhere else, started a new life, got a job, but then she got caught up in an old flame and settled for that. Hey, for me, she really regressed. Her character went backwards from being in an... Okay. I mean, Jimmy, she could have done better than Jimmy, to be honest. But yeah, she chose him. And that's it. Okay, but you see, she was not an infidel until she crossed paths again with Murags and left everything to be with him. So for me, I feel like that was a regression, man. But when it comes to how they built conflict, I would have liked to see. So for their conflict building and resolution, they did it well. Like, they knew how to build tension and conflict, especially Koi and Murag's first meeting, the meeting between Koi and Rose for the first time, when Koi discovers Rose and Murags are still having an affair. They knew how to build conflict very well. And even Murag's internal conflict with himself, it was very clear. Even the conflict between Rose and Jimmy, it was very well done. You could clearly tell there's tension here because the husband is not keeping his end of the bargain. The wife has to do everything. That they did well. They did extremely, extremely well. You could see the tensions between different sets of characters. When it comes to the resolution, I'm 50-50. The one thing I wanted to see is how Koi's dad dealt with Murags. I wish you saw that. We never got to see that. Yeah. I wish you saw that. Yeah, I wish we saw that. That's the one thing that I feel like was amiss for me. How did Koi's dad deal with Murags? Because we only saw Murag's dad tell his son how he's disappointed in him, spent so much money on this wedding for you to come and now say you want a divorce. That's disappointing. I would have loved to see the confrontation between Murags and Koi's dad, because he was like, if you do anything to my daughter, I'll come to you with a big rungu. I would have loved to see what he did, because he hurt his daughter. Murags hurt his daughter. So I'd have really wanted to see that. And some plot holes that I found. The scene where Murags is trying to get Koi's number. Oti asked for Koi's number from his girlfriend Sophie, and she willingly gave it to him without question. Apo, I found it very suspicious, because why? She didn't question as in why does my boyfriend suddenly want Koi's number? What for? I found that to be very weird. I wish that was addressed. The way she just willingly gave Oti Koi's number without question. I found that weird, because typically you'd find that weird if you're a chick and your dude is asking for some other girl's number. You'd want to know why. But she never asked why. It was never addressed. Found that weird. Also, something else is we never really saw how the affair between Rose and Murags affected Rose's kids. I would have loved to see that, because the kids saw Murags. They saw the mother interacting with Murags at some point. So I'd have loved to see how the affair affected Rose and Jimmy's kids. And also, I would have also loved to see how Rose and Jimmy's relationship, because it was abusive. It was an abusive relationship. Jimmy actually put his hands on Rose at some point. I would have loved to see how that affected the kids as well. Because the kids knew their dad wasn't shit. How come we never see the dad not being shit affect the kids? Also, where did the kids stay after Rose and Jimmy separated? Again, it's never addressed. But overall, with the writing, I think the writing was really good for that time and for what they were trying to do at the time. Walijaribu, to be honest. Now, let's go to the dialogue. For the dialogue, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Why? I felt like it was corny at some points. Some points of it were corny, and some of the dialogue felt incomplete. Sometimes I'd struggle to understand, kwani nini amesema? Because of the dialogue. Kuna venye, I think they didn't write it for, I don't know, the dialogue. Yes, some parts were funny. I actually laughed, especially Jimmy's character. Whenever he'd speak, I'd laugh. He was funny. But for some of the characters, their lines were incomplete. I don't know if it's the actors who would forget their lines. I didn't understand because it didn't sound all the way complete. For the sound, a solid 5 out of 10 because some parts of the dialogue were inaudible, especially Rose's parts. When Rose and Murags were out drinking, you could not hear her at all. I was really struggling to hear what she's saying. At some point, the background noise was louder than the dialogue. Paka unashanga nao, am I going to hear beer glasses clinking and music? Am I the people talking? But I'm going to excuse them and say that maybe it's because of the technology at the time and the budget probably wasn't enough to cater for everything. So I'm going to excuse them because this was 2002. So maybe they didn't have the proper budget and the proper technology that they needed at the time. So about the acting I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Nini Washera did a solid job as usual. One of the greatest actresses that this country has ever seen. The actresses playing Brenda, Sophie, and Oti as well did a great job. They also acted really well. Jimmy Jimmy did well, but here's the thing. Jimmy was just playing Mr. Ngatia's character in Tahidi High. If you watch Tahidi High and you remember Mr. Ngatia's character, honestly, they are no different. He's no different to Jimmy. They're the same person, just different shows and different names. I even think like maybe this was the prequel to Tahidi High. This was Mr. Ngatia's life before he became a teacher at Tahidi High. Who knows? Maybe. The guy playing Murags, I don't think he should ever touch a script again. I'm curious to know if he ever did any more roles than this. But his acting at some point, it was a bit, but he really fits the description of a player physically. He did. Yeah, he just looked like he could play you. He could leave you in the desert without water. Yeah. Now, when it comes to the casting, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. They did a good job with the casting. I feel like every person fit their role. You're convinced that, yeah, this is Koi. Nini Washere is actually Koi. Sarah Mwihaki is Rose. Brenda's character was also very, I feel like they cast really well. Everyone fit their role. When it comes to the costume design, 10 out of 10. That one I'm not even debating. The fashion in this film is great. It's really good. Whoever did the wardrobe for Koi and Brenda nailed it. I loved the fashion. Koi and Brenda had really great fashion sense, especially the scene where Koi and her friends disguise themselves to find Murag's cheating. Their outfits, Koi's friends' outfits, and Rose's dress in that scene, they ate. They looked really nice. Brenda and Sophie's outfits and Rose's outfits in that scene, they looked nice. Costume design, 10 out of 10. They ate, they left no crumbs at all. But overall, this was a really good movie. I enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. I hope you enjoy this movie as well. Nishawapea Mwakenya kuipata. Msikwe kama mimi who looked for it for 3 good years. Miaka mitatu. 3 good years looking for a movie. But yeah, be sure to check it out because this movie is the one that started it all, if you're being honest. I know I already said this, but I just want to say it again. This movie was a game changer for the Kenyan film landscape. It literally started it all. This was the predecessor to the Nairobi Half-Lives, to the disconnects that we have today. This movie started it all. And if you're a film enthusiast, especially a Kenyan film enthusiast, yet you haven't watched this movie, you are missing out. And you should definitely put it on your watch list because it's a great movie. But one more thing I also want to talk about is how accessing Kenyan films is very difficult. It's very difficult. And it shouldn't be. It honestly should not be difficult for us to access our films. It's a shame that you have to look so hard to find movies, yet they were made in your country. It shouldn't be that hard. And I think this is something that the film industry and the film community in this country needs to address and look at. We need to make Kenyan films accessible to the public. We need to curate and ensure we have easy access of our films. And not only that, we also need to ensure that we benefit from our films. We make money from them. I was reading an article when I was doing my research for this film that Judy Kibinge didn't make much money from this film because it was released straight to DVD after, screening. in the cinemas, it was released to DVD and it was pirated. So she couldn't really make money the way she needed to from this film. And I feel like that needs to change. That definitely needs to change, because this is time, this is energy, and this is resources. So much goes into making a movie. Oh my God, don't I know it? Hey, please. It takes a lot. It takes so much time, so many resources to just bring a film to life. And for that, we should definitely be able to not only access these treasures, but the people producing them need to be earning from them as well. But all in all, I just hope that you go look for this movie and that you watch it, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to like, to share, to leave your comments, and to subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on Spotify. With that being said, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes like these, and let's get real and raw right here on the Raw Pod with me, Renee Were.